All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Patriots First and Goal. I am Alex Shane here breaking down the Eagles-Patriots game, the end of training camp, the Washington Commanders game, and the upcoming actual regular season with my good buddy Rich Hill. Rich, did you watch the game? How you doing? And all that good stuff.
Oh, I'm doing well. This has been a fun preseason. This has been fun.
Huh?
It's been enjoyable getting to see Drake May develop. It's been good being able to see some of the younger players, Christian Gonzalez come back from injury. It's been fun seeing some of the younger players like Keon White really stand out. And I would say that there's been enough bright spots this offseason that it's been worth it for me. How are you doing?
I am sitting here admiring your optimism and your positive outlook is what I'm doing. It's been a fun offseason. You're right. It's been a fun preseason for, I guess, the novelty of it all. We're kind of experiencing a new thing for the first time, which we'll get to a little later on in the podcast. But look, at the end of the day, football is football. I cannot wait. It's a little cooler here in kind of the northeastern area. You're starting to get that nip in the air just a little bit. A little too early for August, in my opinion, but football weather is right around the corner. I'm getting really excited for regular season. I just re-upped NFL Sunday ticket, and I'm psyched about that. Should be good. And I will also say, to get into our podcast nerdness, there were some pretty good takeaways from this Eagles game, even though the Patriots lost. Like, who cares about the score? So let's get into it, Rich. First and goal, Patriots-Eagles, 14-13, real barn burner. I think obviously the big story in everyone's mind, and maybe to the detriment of humanity, is just the quarterback controversy, quote unquote, brewing right now, as Drake May looked pretty good in limited action, engineered 2 scoring drives. Brissett, not so much. And I feel like whereas maybe this time last week, a lot of people were pretty ensconced in make Jacoby the starter no matter what, there might be a few dissenters in those ranks now, and they want to see Drake May a little earlier than later. Where do you fall on that one, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I was always of the camp that if he ever pulls even with Brissett, you go with Drake May, right? That's the threshold where Brissett going to be a bottom 5 to 10 starter in the NFL. He's not going to be the worst, but he's going to be a low tier starter. And if May can be that, if he can be, in the 20 to 25 range as a rookie, put him in there. That'll be fine. And obviously, little baby steps. I love seeing his athleticism. I love seeing how he felt comfortable out there. But also, like, other side of it, what were his biggest throws? Right? Like he did some good things out there. He had a couple bigger throws out there, but a lot of these were checkdowns. A lot of it was just like him keeping the chains moving, which is good. And the fact for me, the biggest challenge is that Brissett looked so bad that's more of the problem, is that it's not that May looked exemplary. It's that Brissett looked actually just bad, that I feel a little bit more concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I always use this. I don't remember the exact week. I think it was like week 3 of the preseason in 2011, maybe, when the Patriots played the Detroit Lions and there was like Super Bowl atmosphere. I think it was the Chad Ochocinco year, whenever that was, where Brady played almost the first half and he threw like 2 picks and he had like 65 yards and his window was closed and he was done. So I always try and look at that through that lens when looking how badly a quarterback plays in the preseason. But again, I think I talked earlier about how like the tackling looks so good, and there's some things you don't really translate really well into the regular season, like tackling, just like generally inaccurate throws where guys are open and he's like overthrowing them or underthrowing them or hitting it in the dirt, just things you don't want to see. If it had like bounced off his hands, great. If it had been picked off, whatever, but just like the accuracy doesn't seem to be there. And again, you have to wonder how much of it is, how much faith does Brissett have in whatever passes for that offensive line right now? My biggest takeaway from this game, the Eagles game, on both sides of the ball, Rich Hill, is for the love of all things holy, David Andrews, please stay healthy this season, because in 2023, I was like, all right, they're punting the ball. I'll take that as a win. That's how bad they were. If David Andrews goes down, giving the snapping problems they had, my standards may have to be lowered to, oh, good, the snap was successful and they were sacked in the backfield. I'll take it, no fumbles. So please, David Andrews, stay healthy. Maybe that's Brissett's problem. I don't know if I'm being a little too reading that too deeply, but I will say there's definitely more of a quarterback controversy at this point in the season than I'd like.
Totally. And I mean, obviously, we can definitely talk more about the offensive line because pretty clear starting lineup now at this point, it feels like. But my last thought at the quarterback position is Brissett. I feel like from a contracts perspective, he's going to make the roster. He's not getting paid mega millions. So whatever, you keep him around because of his familiarity with the offensive set. If this was not a situation where he had experience with Van Pelt with this offense, would there be a world where they go like May, Zappy, Milton as their three? Like, is there anything Brissett's done that makes you be like, he really does deserve it over Zappy? And I'm not like a Zappy truther.
Yeah, I think for me, I guess here's what Brissett deserves. What I do not want is for Drake May's welcome to the NFL to be a September that consists of at the Cincinnati Bengals, home against the Seahawks, prime time against the Aaron Rodgers-led Jets, and then all the way across the pond to San Francisco for the 49ers, followed by the Dolphins at home. Those are a brutal first 5 games to experience as a rookie. It lightens up a bit after that, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Jets, but I don't know if you want to start off your career in the NFL 0-5, having scored maybe a combined 14 to 20 points. Again, I don't think May is mentally weak. I don't think he's some kind of diva, but that's just a brutal home stretch. I'd be saying that if Tom Brady was under center right now. That is not an easy first 5 games of this season. And so at least Brissett is accustomed to losing games, and he might just be able to weather the storm a little bit better. And if you want to maybe make May the starter in October instead of November, as I argued before, I'd support that based on what I've seen so far. But I don't want to throw May into that first 4 or 5 weeks of the schedule because that's just too brutal and it's going to be really ugly.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And like, again, as you were saying, the offensive line is not good. It's not in a great spot. Vidarian Lowe, who, to your point last podcast, is not as bad as every report says. He's not good, but he's not as bad as it feels like. He's not the bottom of the barrel kind of a thing. He's not going to be good, but he's not the worst thing ever. But he's firmly their starting left tackle, right? Like that's firmly what we're looking at here. Chuck's at right tackle, and Wayno at right guard, City at left guard, and then Andrews in the center. That's the offensive line. That's what we have. And it's one where it makes me ask the question. You look up and down this roster, what we've seen over the first 2 games of the preseason so far. Do you think Vidarian Lowe won the starting job, or are there any other players that it could possibly be? I feel like there's a few other positions we could do this game at, but like, did he win the job, or was there no one else?
I think you could play this game in almost every position along the Patriots roster, unfortunately. I just don't. Honestly, if I had to pick his biggest competition for left tackle right now, I hate to say this, I think it's Onwenu is their biggest competition for left tackle. Like, they take their best lineman and they move him over to the most vulnerable position on the line, even though he's never played over there, because he's just the most reliable option. I don't think they'll do it, but that's kind of where we're at along the offensive line. There's really nobody back up center. I think they're pretty strong at guard. I think that's a very solid position. But the tackles, who the heck knows? But there really isn't a player. I think the only player who will have really earned their starting job is the quarterback. The rest are just kind of there because nobody wants to play in New England anymore, Rich Hill. They had the money. They tried to spend it. No one wanted to take it. But that's kind of where we're at. And, again, nothing I really saw on the Eagles game. And there's so little you can really take away from these preseason games. But there's nothing I really saw in the Eagles game that made me super nervous or upset. But nothing where I'm like, well, they're going to be okay at this position. I think we're just kind of in for a season, buddy. So let's get ourselves ready.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's one player, Boutte, that I'm like, has he played onto the roster? He's been consistently the best receiver from what we've seen, or maybe most productive is the right word, not the best, but the most productive receiver. Because we were talking about this before the whole preseason started. We're like, who's the player that's going to make everyone fall in love with them because they're going to do 100 yards and a score? And no one's come close.
Nope.
No one's come close at all this preseason. And maybe we'll break this down in the second half here on third down against the Commanders. But like, I'm kind of shocked that nobody's shown up at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Rich Hill, which I guess a good transition into second and goal. Training camp's officially in the books. They're treating this week as a regular season prep for Washington, and then getting into cutdown day and getting ready for going to Cincinnati for week one. We talked about it probably in our preseason preview back in late July, early August, like who's going to be that preseason darling that stands out? Who's going to be the one that breaks our heart when he never makes the roster at the end of the month? We were talking before we went live on this podcast. The only person I can really think of that's kind of like a pleasant surprise for this team is David Wallace as a return man. He had a couple of exciting returns. Other than that, I think Joe Milton is as advertised, fun to watch, not anybody you want to rely on to win you a game. There hasn't been any one receiver, not even the starters. Like Pop Douglas has done nothing this preseason. Not that I'm knocking him for that, but there hasn't been any kind of circus catch from anybody. There was like a nice, I think it was Boutte. Drake made a nice throw to Boutte or Baker along the sideline is out of bounds. That was a nice play, but nothing really stood out in games or training camp where one person is just kind of winning our hearts as fans. I guess it's a good thing because we're avoiding that inevitable letdown. But on the flip side of that, Rich Hill, I think I have said this, and I made the statement, just make of this what you will. I think exactly how I was stating objective facts earlier on in the offseason that Tyquan Thornton is rumored to have a good camp. And I think as of right now, as of this discussion, August 21st, 2024, he is slated as a starting receiver for the New England Patriots. I don't know if he's like wide receiver one because they don't really have one, but he's wide receiver something on this roster as of right now. Whether that means good for Tyquan Thornton or woe for everybody else, I don't know. I guess I'll lean optimistic and say good for Thornton, but realistically, it's probably like that's where we're at right now, where this guy that couldn't sniff the field for 2 years is suddenly a starter by necessity.
Yeah, the thing that I dislike the most about that statement is that I can't refute it. And obviously, I've been in the camp of just like, Thornton's never been put in a good position with the team. They have no idea what to do with him. I would have loved to see something from him through 2 games. 1 target, 0 catches in 2 games is not something that you would generate a lot of hope for. But when you look at who's getting what playing time, you kind of have Thornton, Pop Douglas, and Osborne as your top 3. Thornton on the outside, Douglas in the slot, and Osborne as your Kendrick Bourne, your flanker, your Z. And that's your top 3. And I don't love it. It's one where maybe you put Boutte out there instead of Thornton because he's at least producing, maybe. But then, you've seen anything from Polk and Baker in live action that makes you be like, yes, you're going to, and you have truly what we said in the first down, you've won the starting job. I mean, no, Polk has 20 yards on 5 catches. Baker has 23 yards on 8 targets. Like, those are really bad numbers. That's like N'Keal Harry-esque efficiency scores. And again, not their fault. The offense is extraordinarily simplistic at this stage of the preseason and the development of the entire offense. Everyone's super young. But I would have liked to have someone like Baker go out and win that job. And it felt like the Patriots have been saying, like, every single wide receiver, you have the opportunity to win the starting job away from Tyquan Thornton. And I don't think anyone's done it at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, can anybody, I feel like if there's this, ever seen the movie Groundhog Day, Rich Hill?
Yeah.
This is a very, very obscure reference,
yeah.
But toward the end of Groundhog Day, right after Bill Murray's character gets auctioned off for a bunch of money at the Bachelor auction, his cameraman, played by Chris Elliott, comes up and he gets bought for 25 cents by an old lady because nobody else would bid on him. And that was all it was. I feel like Tyquan Thornton is the Bachelor up there and nobody's bidding on him. And all someone has to do is put like $1 down and they can get him, but nobody has the money right now. It's really, really sad. And it makes you kind of maybe a little more understanding as to why all the money they threw at Calvin Ridley and Brandon Ayuk are like, you know what? I think I'll you can keep your $30 million. I'd rather play somewhere else. I get it. One question, though, is I also feel like maybe I haven't read it or I haven't heard it or haven't seen it, but I also haven't heard any reports saying that this quarterback and this receiver are really starting to click. They're developing a relationship. You're starting to see that Brady to Edelman connection start to develop, that Brissett to Thornton. Like, no one's really seemed to be clicking the way that you like to see in preseason as quarterbacks and receivers get to know each other. Have you heard otherwise, Rich, or am I right there?
No, I mean, I think you're right. I think there were like whispers at some point, like Drake May and the young receivers really pulling it together. I don't think I've heard a single rumor about Brissett connecting with the young receivers. I don't think that's ever been a thing, but I've heard it kind of with Drake May, but a lot of those were just like vibes videos coming out of May where they're like, it's not even like real offense. It's just practice and maybe just doing some general walkthroughs and they really like each other. But that's the closest we've gotten. And when you put that in combination with just the fact that nobody has really stood out to this point through 2 games, are you concerned at all that there isn't anything on this roster? You know, like, I'm not going out there being like, who's going to be a top 5 player at their position, but I'm wondering, and obviously this is super early, so don't take this with anything greater than just a question. Do you have any concerns that there's just like no, not even blue chips, but no like red chip players that can be just, you know, Pro Bowl caliber on this offense?
Yeah, I mean, if the Patriots have a single Pro Bowler come December, I'll be very surprised. Unless it's Bryce Behringer, who seems to be back in midseason MVP form, which is good because you're going to need him. I don't know how, if Pro Bowlers and punters aren't always mutually inclusive, but yeah, there's nobody on this roster I see making the Pro Bowl. I think Kendrick Bourne can come back.
I'm not even talking about Pro Bowl this year. I'm not even talking about Pro Bowl 2024. I'm talking about, tell me, Pro Bowl 2025, 2026. Are there any players you feel like on this offense at this point where you're like, I would, if I flipped a coin, say better chance than not they'd be a Pro Bowler by that time, next 3 years?
On the offense, I think in a right system, you could see Ramondre Stevenson having a really good season, but that would require an offensive line that allows him to go nuts, which they don't have. Michael Onwenu, I think, could be a Pro Bowler for sure. Hopefully Drake May has Pro Bowl potential in him, and that's pretty much it. So the answer basically is no.
Yeah, no, and that's with like my last thought too, is just like, and Wayne at right guard, is that a good use of him? Part of me is just like, the biggest glaring issue that the Patriots have had over the past couple of years is that their tackle play has been so bad. And last year, what was the one move that made the offensive line look viable? It was putting Onwenu at right tackle. And I'm just wondering, why are they doing this again? Like, of course, he's a top 5 right guard in the league. Maybe he's a top 10 right tackle. But the tackle position is so important when you have nobody else, whereas they do have a lot of just viable upside depth on the interior, where obviously like Cole Strange isn't healthy. It'd be a different conversation if he was healthy. But I just feel like they're setting themselves up to just trip over and over and over again every single week with Onwenu on the inside. And we're going to say, yeah, Jacoby Brissett, Drake May sacked for 6 times this game because they have no tackle depth. And I'm just wondering, why are they doing this to themselves yet?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you, Rich Hill. Again, like I talked earlier in the podcast, I don't think it's an absurd statement to say maybe try him at left tackle. I know he's never played there, but he's your best offensive lineman. David Andrews too, but he's kind of on the tail end of his career, and nothing quite like getting completely dominated on the left tackle in a blindside blitz that folds a quarterback in half to end the season early for him.
Yeah.
And there's enough depth on the guard position that I think City Salad, Antonio Mafi, you got Cole Strange. You have guys that can be guards. I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe coming up against the Washington Commanders, we'll see a completely different lineup. Who knows? Maybe they're still kind of screwing around with things. They've said that everyone's going to play. I don't know exactly. Does not sound to me at least like your classic last preseason game of the season where it's just the backups versus the backups of the backups. So maybe we'll see more following this Washington game. But as of right now, yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it before. Every single NFL offense, no matter how good you are, lives and dies by the O-line. And since the O-line remains the big question mark, coupled with the fact they have no real receivers that are scaring anybody, and the tight ends are all injured, I just don't know why you wouldn't just put 8 guys in the box every single time and just stymie this offense 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, nonstop. It's going to be rough. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the offensive line will get it together, and we'll know more against Washington.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And so let's start breaking down that game. We'll move to third down, breaking down Washington Commanders versus the Patriots after this.
Hey everyone, it's Alec Shane from Patriots First and Goal, here to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, because unlike other apps, with Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. You just gotta pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, then watch the winnings roll in. Plus, with Prize Picks, if you sign up today, you can get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. I've always been a big stats guy, so for me, it's all about more or less on stat projections on certain players. I love Patrick Mahomes to throw for more than 400 to 300 yards this season, and for Aaron Rodgers to throw for less than 3,750. I will always go for Tyreek Hill more than 1,000 receiving yards and Saquon Barkley for less than 1,000 rushing yards. It's easy to do, and it's a ton of fun. Just download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS, and you'll get a first-round deposit match of up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Run your game.
All right, so Alec, third down, Patriots Commanders. What are you looking for on offense? As you said, maybe this is going to be a different vibe than a lot of other final preseason games in the past, where the Patriots aren't going to bench all of their starters because we don't know who their starters are going to be. So what are you going to be looking for coming out of this game?
Yeah, I think Gerard Mayo was quoted as saying pretty much everyone is available is going to play. So everyone will see some time. We don't really know. This isn't like the old week 3 of the preseason, but it's definitely not week 4 of the preseason, where there's really no point in watching it, because almost everyone that marches out there is going to be calling you about your car's extended warranty in a couple of weeks. I think there's going to be a lot of different looks, a lot of different schemes. And, obviously this is more important for those back end of the roster guys. But, I think what I'm looking for the most, I guess, to start with the offensive side of the ball, Jacoby Brissett and Drake May are in lockstep for who's going to be that starting quarterback. Does one see more time than the other? I'm really not going to read into it too much if Brissett starts or May starts. I'm not reading into in terms of like the playing time, but I think that this could be a game where one of them really separates themselves over the other. So to your point, if Drake May just clearly looks like the better quarterback, I'm not necessarily opposed to giving him the nod in September, despite my reservations at the early part of that schedule. But Brissett can't play any worse than he did last week on the plus side. So that is something to look for. And again, are they going to move the offensive line around? Are they going to shift the guys at guard? Are there going to be some new positions at tackle? I really want to see maybe David Andrews see less reps, because who's going to be the backup center if he goes down? No clue who they might even have a guy on the roster right now. They have a CFL guy who's got like a Lord of the Rings-esque name, whose name escapes me, like Liam Fellinor or something like that.
Liam
Fornadell
from Rivendell.
Yeah,
third of his name.
He's straight up a Tolkien novel, but you don't want to have that guy snapping you the ball. So offensive line, are they going to keep it the same? How do they look? Again, I don't know what we're going to see from Washington either. Will it be most of their starters? Will there be any kind of hat on a hat kind of apples to apples comparison, or is it the Patriots starters versus the third stringers, the Commanders? Mm-hmm. There's a lot to know there. So you got to do what you can control. And that's Jacoby Brissett, can you play better? And Mac Jones. This is where I'm at, Rich Hill. I'm reverting to 2021 with Mac Jones to Jacoby Myers. It's a very, very sad state of affairs. Can Jacoby Brissett and Drake May, does one clearly get the nod after this game? If not, I say you default to Brissett. And is there an offensive line package that clearly works better? If not, you default to what's working before.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And also, do we all see Mac Jones just light it up for the Jaguars last week? And it was just, I'm going to be rooting for him. No offense to Patriots front office and everything like that, but they have mismanaged his career so greatly that if he comes out and is a viable starter around the league, I'll be so happy for him. But yeah, no, I mean, I would like to see them be like, either it's like first half Brissett, second half May, or first quarter, have them alternate quarters. And honestly, just be like, here's the names that we have for our offensive line, top 5 you play the first half, second 5, you play the second half. Here's our top string offense skill position players. You play the first quarter, third quarter, and second string play, second quarter, fourth quarter. So they both get the reps behind the best offensive line that they can. They both get the opportunity with Drake May, both get the opportunity with Jacoby Brissett, because like it's not going to be Milton and Zappi. They're just not going to be the starting quarterbacks. It's a 2 quarterback position. And like, obviously we know Ramondre is going to lead, but who's behind him? Like, I think Hasty's done a pretty good job this offseason to make his case, but like we've talked about this, Kevin Harris versus Terrell Jennings, like who's going to win on that front? Will it be Boutte versus Tyquan Thornton, Osborne, Demario Douglas, Polk and Baker? Like there's a bunch of players that are in consideration. So let them both get reps with either quarterback. And that way you can make that informed decision where you know who's generally going to make the roster. Maybe, positions 50 to 53 are up in the air. But what they still have no idea about right now is who should be your starters, who should be your top backups at a lot of positions here. And so they need to really take this time to decide this is who we're going to be playing in week 1, unless they're just going to say, all right, yeah, those first 5 weeks of the season, which are going to be a total nightmare, we're a bad team anyways. We might as well just treat them like the preseason.
Yeah, it's funny. We always joked about how the tables have turned, Rich, how the first kind of 4 weeks of the Brady era was an extended preseason as they figured out how they're going to get to 12-4 in their first round bye and which of their schemes are going to work the best. Now it's just the first 4 weeks are like, we're going to get slaughtered, so you may as well just play around with some formations. But them's the breaks, I guess. My question to you, though, Rich, is which I think, obviously Drake May, Brissett, they have a lot to prove, but they're not on the bubble. They're both making the team 100%. There are plenty of players with a lot to prove, but they're making the team. Is there a particular player on the offense you think can benefit the most from this game or hurt himself the most by playing poorly? Is there one guy in particular on the offense you think has a real shot to make or break his career or his season, at least this upcoming game?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Jaheim Bell is someone who has taken out the most of the past week. As you mentioned earlier, both Hunter Henry, Hooper, the players have been dealing with just being banged out. And so Bell's been getting a lot of opportunity to get some tight ends because from what we've seen with Wilcox out there, who had been the number 3 tight end, he's not doing anything with those opportunities. And I think Bell had like a 3 touchdown day in one of these joint practices against the Eagles or something like that, where he's trying to stand out. And so it's one where when it comes time to playing against the Commanders, can he emerge? Like obviously he's a fringe player. He's going to be special teams as a rookie, but play something on offense. And I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity to play. I think that he has a very clear path to the offense in a way that I feel like is a little bit more open because like he could also just not make the team at all. When like similar way where you look at the wide receivers where it's like, I don't know, like you know who our top 5, 6 are. It's just a matter of what's the order of those 6. With the tight end spot, it's like we have our top 2 and that anyone else could make the roster or anyone else might not be in the league this year.
Anyone else could make I mean, it's crazy where we're at. You're just as likely to start for the Patriots as you are to not be in the NFL at all. That's kind of where we're at with that, especially in the tight end position. I'll tell you, this may not be like the right answer to my own question, but I guess one of the more enigmatic or mysterious Patriots players I've been following / not following all season is KJ Osborne. I cannot for the life of me figure out how the coaching staff views him because he's been out there with the starters both weeks in the preseason they played so far, starting unit.
Yep.
If he's caught a pass, I don't remember it. There are other players we're talking about a lot more, but he seems somewhat ensconced as maybe the 3rd receiver, but he's done nothing to earn it. So maybe we see something against Washington that gives me a little more faith in why they're so high on him. So Osborne's one guy I want to see do something I remember this time next week.
Yeah, Osborne, I don't think has a single target this preseason, but then you look at it and you have Demario Douglas, Tyquan Thornton, and Osborne, who we said are our presumed starters, have 3 targets for 1 catch and 1 yard so far across the 3 of them. So again, as you're saying, like they might not be the starters. If Jalen Polk comes out this week and just goes, becomes that here's our 75 yards and a score, I'd be like, start him. I don't care. Start him. I don't care if it was the backup Commanders. Like, give me something on this front because right now there's not been a lot of action. We know what Demario Douglas can do. we in theory can know what Osborne does, from his time with the Vikings, but they just don't have enough players that are ceiling raisers, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of these players are not even floor raisers, honestly. Like Jacoby Myers is the epitome of a floor raiser. He's not going to go out there and put up 150 yards and 3 scores in a single game. But you put him out there, he's probably going to get 60 yards on 6 catches every single day. And I don't think they have that at this point. Mario Douglas could be that, but I don't think that they have consistent floor raisers other than Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry is a floor raiser player, but other than him, I don't think they have a lot of floor raising players at this point. Some could develop into that, but they definitely don't have any ceiling raiser players. I don't think that they have any players on offense that scares the defense. And I think that's what I'm waiting to see.
Maybe they will get somebody that scares somebody in offense, Rich Hill, if they finally give me my Milton to Tyquan Thornton go route I've been bothering everyone about since July. I have one chance left, Rich. I have 1 week for this to happen. Yeah. This has to be the Milton to Thornton go route week. Otherwise, I'm completely screwed. Even if both make the roster, which at this point, who knows? It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if they keep 3 quarterbacks. Milton's QB3 and Thornton's our receiver 1. But Milton's never going to see the field in 2024. So this has to be my week for the Milton to Thornton go route. Just Mayo, on the off chance you're listening to this podcast right now, it's not going to break your career. Just give me the Joe Milton to Tyquan Thornton go route. Just show off the speed, show off the arm, give defensive coordinators along the rig something to think about when Thornton's on the field. He caught that massive bomb in the preseason. Let's play the safety a little farther back than we usually would. What do you got to lose?
Yeah, I want that just one drive, fourth quarter, when none of it matters. 4 go routes from Tyquan Thornton and put Rieger out there too, but just have it be Milton hucking it just 50 yards down the field. That's all we need. Yeah. That's what the preseason's all about.
Or just like, even if it's the last play of the game and they're at the 30-yard line and they're down 20, just like have everybody go in the end zone, have Milton just huck one down there. It's the last time we're going to see that this season. It would just be fun to watch. Milton's one of the few, at least from a aesthetic perspective, a fun part of the preseason, just watching him do his thing. Other than that, it's going to be pretty boring if I had to guess.
Yeah, totally. Well, I also don't know what else we're really looking for on this offensive side other than just like, who's going to be the starters? Like, it's all still question marks at this point in time.
Everything.
But where there
are looking for everything.
Yeah.
Nothing is better than football season. And football season is so much better at the game. Of course, I have season tickets to the Patriots, and I love going to Patriots games every year. The tailgate experience is incredible. And, just being there with family and friends is unbeatable. But this year, I'm actually making a trip all the way out to Notre Dame to see a college football game for the first time. And I'm so excited about that atmosphere as well. Now, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats that you don't have to waste any time searching through thousands of tickets. Now, for this Notre Dame game, I did go on the Game Time app. I searched for the Game Time Picks. I found the tickets I want, and I bought them. But here's the thing that's even better about Game Time Picks, because they have all-in pricing at Game Time. And that makes it so much easier, because I'm not looking at the ticket saying, oh, it's this price, and then I get to the checkout line and it's $80 more expensive. No. That's not happening. I can actually see how much I'm going to pay before I do anything else, before I actually pay for my tickets. And that makes buying tickets so much easier. Now, you can take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Where we're not looking for things, and we can fold special teams into this one, is let's go into fourth down. Patriots defense and their special teams. What are your perceptions of them at this point? I think they've looked outstanding.
Look, I mean, luckily for us, we touched on it on our Eagles breakdown. Like, Bryce Behringer's having himself a couple of weeks. He is just booming punts. He's punting guys into the corner. He is back into midseason form as last year, which is good because they're probably going to need him a lot. come this season. That's a really good thing. It looks like Joey Sly has the inside track on the kicker position as of right now.
Yeah.
His grasp maybe tentative, if that, but he banged like a 48 and a 49 yarder. He had the kickoffs. It seems like it's his job for now. And the real question mark on special teams is, has David Wallace done enough to sneak onto the roster? Because unless you think, again, I guess this kind of contradicts our earlier point about how mediocre at best the receiving core is. I really don't see David Wallace having any role on this team beyond punt and kick returner. So is that one thing enough to warrant a roster spot in a team that historically, under Belichick at least, really desires positional versatility?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, like, I would say so. He's been one of the best kick returners, including punt return this offseason, and they desperately need it. I've actually been really interested to see how these new kickoff rules have come into effect. And like, a returner is now exceptionally important again.
Yeah,
it's a massive role, because I feel like how many kick returns went past the 30-yard line versus what we used to have. And like, the difference between starting at the 25 versus the 35 is huge. Expected points over the course of an entire game. You keep doing that, you're going to get an extra point just out of your being a better returning team. And for Wallace to have the burst that he does out there, that's very promising. Honestly, would have loved to have Marcus Jones be back and healthy. Maybe he'll start doing this with the Commanders now that he's been practicing again. But Marcus Jones could have a massive impact on whether or not David Wallace makes the roster or not, just due to his availability as a return man. But that specific role is more important than it's been in a very long time. And I think this is going to be one of the best rule changes we've seen in the league for a while.
Yeah, I mean, you watch these kickoffs, and it always looks like the returner is like one gap away from breaking it. There's like one big line of bodies, and you can just make one cut or get one block. You can break it. It definitely beats touchback for a kickoff. So I am all for it. A little getting used to it. Looks weird, but who cares? But that's the special teams. Again, I think that Sly has it for now. I think Wallace is in for now, and Behringer, you remain the man. I think one of the interesting battles, I think we're pretty well stacked at the top of the defensive roster. So it's really those kind of like last few spots. And I think maybe one of the more intriguing questions that will get answered over the coming days is, who are the Patriots going to keep at the kind of cornerback position behind Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, and Marcus Jones? You've got Alex Austin, you've got Isaiah Bolden, you've got Marcellus Dial, Aziz Hearn, Mikey Victor. Sean Wade is injured, so that might be a Foxboro flu IR situation. And then Marco Wilson, who I'd completely forgotten about until he started against the first week of the preseason. So if you have a guess right now, are they going to keep seven cornerbacks total? So it's 4 addition to Jones, and Gonzalez. 2. How many guys in secondary do you see? And of the ones I mentioned, who do you kind of see as the last guys in on the cornerback spots?
Yeah, well, I think that there's obviously a top 4 when you add an Alex Austin. Alex Austin, he's in that starting group. Honestly, I would say that there's top 3 cornerbacks are going to be Gonzalez and Austin as your starters, with Jonathan Jones as the third one on. And it'll be a little bit more of a matchup whether Austin or Jones gets more snaps. And then you add in Marcus Jones. That's your big 4. From what I've seen from the others, I did not think Marcellus Dial had a very good game against the Eagles. It felt like every time you looked, both he and Hearn felt like they were in a bad position to make a play on the ball. They were not close to the receivers. So I don't think that there's a lot of confidence beyond those big 4. I would say Bolden probably has the inside edge due to his special teams ability, and Dial can develop on the practice squad. They need to have a practice squad player. I don't think anyone else has really done enough. But the reason why I'd feel comfortable going in with those 5, if you include Bolden, is because I think their safety position is so deep, and that gives them a lot of flexibility. Because obviously, you have Peppers out there, Duggar is also, they're great, but we saw good plays out of Bledsoe out there. Obviously, Mapu is still in development, but Jalen Hawkins had some good plays out there. So that's 5 right there, not including that. Like Del Pettis looked really good a while ago. Brendan Schooler, obviously special teams player. They have some of the flexibility at that safety position that I feel like allows them to say, okay, if we go 4/5 deep, depending on if you view Bolden as pure special teams player, is that going to be okay? And I think they will be, because their safety position runs so deep that I think it allows them to be a little bit more flexible with the rest of the secondary.
Speaking of depth, luckily, again, we're still kind of figuring out the post-Matthew Judon era along the front of the line. And again, if you've heard anything differently, but all signs are really pointing towards, unfortunately, Christian Barmore missing the whole season. Hopefully for his sake, there's no reason to rush him back, especially this year. Why would you have him come back and just be on the field all the time? The defense is going to spend a lot of time on the field. But it seems that there's enough depth along that front four to at least make it sizable. Keon White seems to be an absolute beast, which is nice. Yep. Your question about Pro Bowl potential, he's definitely in there. And one guy that's really got some to step up is Ukale in Barmore's absence. He's only 30, still on the right side of it. He's kind of that space-eating clogger in the middle. So against this game against Washington, I want to see him maybe show up a little more, not necessarily on the stat sheet, but maybe take those double teams, eat the guys, and allows the edge rushers to get it done.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, you look at these edge rushers, they're rolling deep on it. You mentioned Keon White, but you also put in Wise out there, Anthony Jennings. Uche got a sack last time. Zimenez has been probably one of the highlight players of the Patriots defense this offseason, one of the best surprises. He feels very much like one of those traditional Bill Belichick recycle players, like the ones that like had some promise but didn't do anything and then becomes a viable role player with the Patriots. He has 2 sacks, 6 tackles so far, an extra quarterback hit, forced fumble. Like he's making plays. He's very clearly a top 5 pass rusher on this team. And when you think of like Uche probably going to get a big deal contract coming out of this, Zimenez is a good one to have around, as a long-term developmental. Does he fit in the system? Is he working for them? That's great. But I completely agree that the question comes with that defensive interior spot of like, okay, who do they have? Who's been doing well on that interior spot? Because if Barmore's gone, they're going to miss a lot of that. And obviously, we've talked about this on previous podcasts. Ekwale, I agree with you on that one. But I think Farms is someone who's going to also become a fan favorite just because of his story, how his role is probably going to grow. I don't think he's going to be around with the Patriots when the time comes for them to actually be contending. But I think that he's definitely going to be a crucial part of the Patriots in this stage of their rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jeremiah Farms. Also another good name. Sounds like some place you visit on a fall evening. Let's go to Jeremiah Farms and get some cider. But look, I mean, I guess one of the benefits of just having these holes in the roster is it will allow, ideally, I think unlike the offense where all you kind of have to do to make this team is just kind of show up. I think that on the defensive side of the ball, there's enough talent on the back end of it that the people that step up will have earned it, will be able to step in. And I don't think the drop off will be so massively significant. Obviously, Barmore's a better player than these guys, but it's not this like epic drop off where they're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I don't know. I don't know. The real question, I guess, remains, what is Washington going to do with their starters? Are they going to see any starters? Again, it's such a confusing time with the 3-week preseason. I'm not sure how many Commanders that'll be here this time next month will be on the field on Sunday. But if hopefully at least a couple of series starters against starters, the passing gets a good penetration, and I would like to see Jaden Daniels play. I think he's going to play. I don't know for sure. But this is really intriguing in that obviously that was always kind of the question in April with the Patriots had the 3rd overall pick and Washington the 2nd overall pick. Who are they going to take? So we were all pretty familiar with Jaden Daniels because he was definitely an option for the Patriots at 3. So maybe we'll see Daniels versus May, and we'll get a little preview of what could have been for one of us. Yeah,
totally. And I mean, definitely a case where Jaden Daniels has been looking the part so far with the Commanders. So they'll forever be compared with one another. But I don't have anything else I want to talk on this game right now. Alec, if you want to move to our final predictions of the preseason.
Let's do it. The final meaningless prediction of the final meaningless game of the meaningless preseason. All right. So I had the Eagles winning. You had the Patriots winning. So once again, I am, unlike the Patriots, 2-0 this preseason.
How dare you?
All right. Usually it doesn't bode well for the regular season, but I will worry about that when it happens. I'm going to go with the Patriots in this one. Again, I think they're going to probably be playing their starters more regularly than the Washington Commanders will. I feel like they have more question marks. Commanders, they're not going to be a very good team either, but at least they have a little more certainty at various positions, so they'll have more room to get the backups and those back end of the roster guys in. And if the Patriots can't move the ball against the backups, we're in a lot of trouble. Still don't think it's going to be a very high-scoring game because they don't really score a lot of points, but I'm going to go Patriots in this one, something like 17-14.
Wow. Well, I'm going to keep riding with it. I think that, as we mentioned earlier, I think the Patriots are going to use their starters way more than the Commanders will, just because, hey, this isn't their year. So you might as well see who you have and use this as another piece of data to make those decisions. And so I think the Patriots will have their starters going a little bit later than the Commanders will. And I think it'll be enough to push the Patriots over. I think they win this one something like 21-14.
21-14. All right. It's going to make it a little harder to figure the math out for me if they both win. But again, it doesn't matter. It's the preseason. The good news is, Rich, we have a very full podcast next week, because not only do we break this game down and what we saw, but cut day is next week. So we get to do our final 53, what our roster projections are. That's always fun. And then we can turn the page to the regular season and whatever that may be for us as Patriots fans. So buckle up, buddy.
Yep, totally. And I can't wait to break it down with you, Alec. That's all I got. Until next time, you have a good one.
You too, buddy. See ya.